Welcome to the Mystic Messenger Iceberg. If you don't know what an iceberg is, it's a chart that lists information about a topic from most well-known and lighthearted to most obscure and dark. The iceberg chart I'm using in this video was made by yours truly, and I'll have a Google Doc with all my information linked in the description. This should go without saying, but major spoilers for Mystic Messenger. I also want to give a content warning for the following topics. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Tier 1. Chariots. Chariots is the South Korean otome game company behind Mystic Messenger. Upon opening the app, the player will hear one of 8 characters say, Chariots. I also think it's worth mentioning that all of the characters who say this have a route except for Rika. Here's a short clip of each character saying it.
체리츠 체리츠
체리츠
체리츠 체리츠 체리츠 체리츠
체리츠
Other Chariots games. Mystic Messenger was not the first game developed by Chariots, and it certainly isn't the last. Dandelion, Wishes Brought to You, and Nameless, The One Thing You Must Recall, are games released prior to Mystic Messenger. Dandelion is referenced in Mystic Messenger by the name Tandelion, and there is even a screenshot of the game's interface during one of the chat rooms. The Zoom is an upcoming game set to be released later this year. The games prior to Mystic Messenger were both released for PC and Mac, while Mystic Messenger and the Zoom are for Androids and iPhones. I haven't played the other games, but I've heard good things about them, and I'm looking forward to playing the Zoom. Game modes. In Mystic Messenger, there are 3 game modes to choose from: Casual Story, Deep Story, and Another Story. You can pursue Zen, Yusung, or Jaehee in Casual Story, Jumin or 707 in Deep Story, and V or Ray in Another Story. Another Story takes place a year before Casual and Deep Story and functions as an alternate timeline rather than a prequel. Casual Story is free, while Deep Story costs 200 hourglasses and Another Story costs 550 hourglasses. The price of Deep Story used to be 80 hourglasses, but it was increased on January 1st, 2021. Parodies. Mystic Messenger has a rather extensive list of parodies on the wiki. Some of the most notable ones include Grandpa Lamsey, aka Gordon Ramsay, Honey Buddha Chips, aka Honey Butter Chips, PhD Pepper, aka Dr. Pepper, and League of Loneliness of Life, aka League of Legends. Though this is more of a reference than a parody, I also want to bring attention to the BTS reference on day 4 of Another Story.
Every morning I wake up to the same sound, picking on myself on the TV.
Hourglasses. Hourglasses are the currency of Mystic Messenger that can be earned through favorable interactions with the characters. Zen, in particular, tends to give the most hourglasses because there are many opportunities to compliment him. Hourglasses can also be given during events such as character birthdays or the game's anniversary. In fact, this video will be up on the 6th anniversary. So, get that bread. Welcome. Welcome messages are one of the first things that a player will see upon opening the app. All 8 characters deliver these messages, and they're different depending on the time of day. Spaceship plus chips plus hearts. The spaceship is found on the home screen, and when clicked, displays the thoughts of a random character. Every character has 1 to 2 thoughts per day, and this one is my favorite. As time passes, the spaceship moves closer to a bag of Honey Buddha chips. When clicked, the chips allow the player to collect hearts and hourglasses. Character hearts. Character hearts are indicators that the player has said something a character likes. Getting enough hearts for a character will land the player on their route, as long as they're playing the correct game mode. Zen is gray, Yusung is green, Jaehee is yellow, Jumin is blue, 707 is red, V is mint, and Ray is magenta. There also existed a white heart some players believed to represent the MC, but Chariots has stated that this was just a glitch. Guests. Guests are invited to the RFA party by the player. Their attendance depends on how well the player responds to their emails. The amount of guests in attendance affects the type of ending that will be obtained, either normal or good. Viewing the guests' profiles and engaging with the story mode will give the player 1 hourglass per guest. Mysterious Messenger plus variants. Mysterious Messenger is the official theme song of Mystic Messenger. It is performed by singer Han and has an English and Korean version. An instrumental version of the theme plays when you open the app, but is quickly replaced by the home screen theme. There is also an April Fool's version of the opening that reanimates the style in a much better fashion, in my opinion. Ringtones. Ringtones are a feature found in the game's settings that lets you change the text tones, ringtones, and email notifications. For some reason, I didn't know about it for quite a while. Here's what's obviously the best ringtone.
내 전화는 받아주세요. 차기 회장은 끊어주세요.
Holiday themes. For certain holidays, like Christmas and Valentine's Day, the menu music changes. Here's a snippet of the Valentine's Day 2022 theme remix. Yusung crying.
This how pressing.
707 is bi. In the RFA VIP booklet, 707 states that he doesn't limit his preference to women as long as there is a connection. This may seem like a confirmation, but Cheritz has also stated that it wasn't meant to be a comment about his sexuality, but that they do want players to feel treasured no matter their gender. So, it's like basically canon.
Bicon 707.
Jaehee for Jaehee. Jaehee's sexuality is also a hot topic of discussion among fans. Given that she is a love interest in a game with a female MC, it is safe to assume that she's attracted to women. Though a lot of this isn't made explicitly clear, in her good ending, she's confused to be, quote-unquote, so excited over a girl. The phrase, Jaehee for Jaehee, has been a joke within the fandom for a long time. You see, it's funny because it rhymes. Does Juminhan is gay? Yet another meme within the fandom. This particular one was inspired by the Does Bruno Mars is gay meme. The meme was created because there are several instances of other characters suspecting that Jumin is gay, and Jumin tends to respond with annoyance rather than denial. The meme became so popular that Cheritz even made t-shirts with the phrase, despite discomfort within the Korean fandom. 707 cross-dresses. This is pretty common knowledge and a popular subject of fan art, among other things. While 707 does seem to take pleasure in cross-dressing, he also does it for his job with the secret agency. On a phone call during the first day of his route, 707 states that, because he is one of the smallest agents, he often performs jobs where he has to dress as a woman. Old game layout. The game layout of Mystic Messenger is much different from when the game was first released. The old layout was more reminiscent of the RFA logo and the graphics of the theme song, with yellow featuring prominently. The new layout makes more use of mint green and organizes the features to be more user-friendly. The layout was changed in 2017, shortly before the release of V's route. It is possible that the layout was changed around this time to reflect the story of Mystic Messenger going beyond the RFA and into Mint Eye. Merchandise. The Cheritz shop sells merchandise for Mystic Messenger and The Soon. Some of their biggest items are the RFA VIP package and the Special Believer package, which both contain booklets, photos, and CDs from RFA and Mint Eye, respectively. Other shop items include folders, postcards, mouse pads, keychains, and pillows. Okay, but who would get these pillows? Total weirdos, that's who. Webtoon. Invitation of the Mystic Messenger, illustrated by Mary G, was released in April of 2020. Though many fans were excited when the project was announced, the final product wasn't so adored. Readers didn't like that the main character was Hana Kang as opposed to the MC from the game. Some also felt that a webtoon would not be able to capture the nature of choice within the game. For better or for worse, the webtoon ran its course, and the artist seems to have moved on to new projects. You can check out her work on Naver in the description. Seasonal events. Seasonal events are title images and intro chats that can be purchased for 40 hourglasses. They include character birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. Endings. Each character has a good ending, normal ending, 3 bad story endings, and 2 bad relationship endings, bringing the number of endings per character to 7. There are also prologue endings, day 5/routeless endings, after endings, and DLC endings. Adding all of these brings the total to about 94 endings. Tier 2. Hourglass farming. Hourglass farming is using repetitive methods in order to obtain hourglasses. Some of the most popular methods of getting hourglasses include farming the prologue, farming the Christmas DLC, checking the RFA guest comments, and logging in during events. I'll include a link to a Reddit guide for hourglass farming in the description. Game website. I literally didn't know about this website until a few weeks ago. I wish I did because it has some interesting stuff like character bios, old game layout screenshots, Twitter banners, Ask Me Anything comics, chat and comic hybrids called chat tunes, and charity campaigns. I think it's worth taking a look just to read the AMA comics and chat tunes. There's also a tab for people who have purchased the RFA VIP or special believer packages to activate quote-unquote package privileges and discounts. I'll have the site linked in the description. DLCs. DLCs, or downloadable contents, are extra stories that can be purchased with hourglasses. The current DLCs include the 2016 Christmas special, the 2017 April Fool's special, the Valentine's Day After Ending, Rika Behind Story, V After Ending Judge or Forgive, Bad Jumand and After Life in the Mansion, and Ray After Ending The Final End. After endings. After endings are, well, after the ending. The good ending, to be specific. They're usually a short and wholesome story about the progression of the MC and love interest relationship. In Zen's after ending, he is a highly successful musical artist and actor, and the MC is his manager and girlfriend. In Yusung's after ending, he is married to the MC and works as a veterinarian, despite being blind in one eye. In Jaehee's after ending, she and the MC open a coffee shop while Juman struggles to replace her position as his assistant. In Juman's after ending, he is married to the MC and the two are swamped by reporters, but Juman just tells them how much he loves his wife. In 707's after ending, he and the MC open a toy shop and rescue Saren. And then 707 wakes up. Since this after ending was sort of a fake out, many fans consider the secret endings to be 707's true after ending, but these will be discussed further down the iceberg. As for V and Ray's after endings, they will also be discussed later. Light and Daffodils. Light and Daffodils is the opening theme for another story. It's performed by V and Rika's voice actors, Ho-san Lee and Hyunjin Lee. The song uses imagery of a growing daffodil as a metaphor for V and Rika's destructive romance. Voice actor songs. As we already know, V and Rika's voice actors can sing, but so can many of the other voice actors. Little Kitty is a song by V, Zen, and Yusung's voice actors, Ho-san Lee, Jang Kim, and Shim Gyu-hyuk. This song seems to be from some discontinued game that's really hard to find information on. Some other songs worth mentioning are Think About It and Still You by Ho-san Lee and The Narrow Street by Shin Young-woo. 707 has a twin. This is something I knew about before I played the game, because 707 was everywhere. Naturally, I found out about his twin through comics, though I didn't understand the context since I hadn't actually played the game yet. But yeah, Sejong and Saran Choi. Probably the most popular Mystic Messenger characters. Also, a lot of fans want to have a threesome. V is blind. This is also something I could see being revealed to someone through comics rather than them actually playing the game. It's a popular subject of comics and memes because people couldn't come up with something funnier for V's character? I don't know. The blind jokes got old fast, and I was 3 years late to the fandom. Rika is alive. You better believe I was shocked to see her walking and talking and running a cult in the secret endings. It does make sense, but I'm glad the players were made to think she was dead for a good chunk of the game. Made the reveal even crazier. And once she was revealed, I wish she had died for real. Zen and V smoke. Zen's smoking is an important plot point in his route as he acknowledges that he would like to quit. As for V, the RFA orientation guidebook states that he reaches for a pipe when he needs to think.
I still love him, I don't care.
Jaehee has a black belt. In the game, Jaehee is said to have a black belt in judo. Rika's scrapbook expands on this by telling a story of when Jaehee took down a burglar robbing a convenience store at the age of 22. Because of this, Jaehee was given a Courageous Citizen award. Elizabeth's origin. Elizabeth III was given to Jumin by V and Rika because Rika wanted to help Jumin feel less lonely, as he has trouble making connections with other people. V was the one that named her Elizabeth III, and this is because of her real-life counterpart. One of the Charit's staff members found a cat, and when she was adopted, she was given the name Elizabeth so she would live like a queen. Jumin made Jaehee change her look. In order to obtain the job as Jumin's assistant, Jaehee was made to cut her long hair and wear non-prescription glasses. This is because Jumin wanted her to look traditionally less attractive. In her good ending, however, she grows out her hair and seems much happier. Seron and Yusung dyed their hair. Speaking of hair, many fans already knew that Yusung's hair was dyed blonde after Rika's quote-unquote death. Something that was unclear for a while was whether this was also the case for Seron. He had red hair in his youth, but has white hair with red tips in the present. Some fans suspected that the discoloration may have been due to the drugs he was dosed with over his lifetime, but a voicemail from Jaehee during his after ending confirms that it was just dyed. Jumin liked Rika. During flashbacks on Jumin's route, conversations between him and Rika can be seen. It is heavily implied that Jumin had feelings for Rika, as he believes she is one of the few good women out there that like him for who he is. Jumin never acts on these feelings because he cares more about his friendship with V. After receiving Elizabeth III, Jumin projects his feelings for Rika onto the cat, and she becomes a living emotional crutch for him. MC profile photos. There are 5 default profile photos that the player can choose from, aside from choosing a custom photo. The first photo is the MC that appears in game CGs and is the one most commonly drawn in fan works. V in the Soom. The Soom's opening theme was released in April of 2022, and viewers noticed that at the minute 22 mark, there is a character that looks a lot like V. Mint hair and a camera. This is actually the main love interest of the Soom, Teo, who can have different hair and eye colors and is stated to be into photography. Storytelling events. Storytelling events are Twitter polls and Google Forms that allow participants to follow a small storyline for holidays like Halloween and Valentine's Day. The Twitter polls are based on the majority vote, while the Google Forms allow players to make their own decisions and go back to experience different endings. I'll have the Valentine's Day 2022 Google Form linked down below. Banned accounts. Occasionally, Charits will make announcements on Tumblr about Mystic Messenger accounts that are being banned for quote-unquote abusive behavior. This behavior can be defined as changing the game program for malicious purposes or hacking the game data for data manipulation. Players that exhibited this behavior have their accounts banned permanently. Specific actions that fall under the category of abusive behaviors are as follows: changing your device's time to access chat rooms, exploiting game bugs or glitches, and using an emulator or a jailbroken device. Vanderwood route. Guys, Charits just dropped the trailer for Vanderwood's route this morning. Check it out. Okay, but for real, a lot of people have been asking for a Vanderwood route ever since 707's route, and after getting the chance to flirt with him during V's route. It's probably not very likely to happen since the story of Mystic Messenger is over, but maybe they'll just decide to do it one day. A Tumblr user created a very detailed outline of a hypothetical Vanderwood route. I'll have it linked down below, so check it out if you want. V route delay. Due to V's popularity from players of Casual and Deep Story, V was to get his own route in the new Another Story game mode. His route, along with Another Story, was set to be released in August of 2017, but was delayed until V's birthday, September 9th. 707 Prank Call. If the player starts a Common or Deep Story route after midnight, they will get a phone call from 707. The phone call happens after the player participates in the first chat room at 12:03 a.m. In the call, 7 claims that your bank account has been used for a fun prank, and the only way to fix this is to say, "Honey, I love you." If you do this, he calls you cute, but also warns you against falling for real phone scams. You can also choose not to say it or to tell him that you're going to hang up, but the ending is the same. He ends the call by telling you to expect to get in contact with the other RFA members and to look forward to being a part of the organization. Tier 3. The Bomb. The bomb is something that is sure to shock new players once they encounter it. At some point in every route, the presence of a bomb in Rika's apartment is brought up, and it is fuel for anxiety in all future routes. The bomb is also tied to several dark endings, one of which will be discussed later. Prologue endings. Prologue endings can be obtained if the player follows specific actions during the prologue. In total, there are 3 prologue endings, 1 for Casual and Deep Story, and 2 for Another Story. The Casual/Deep Story prologue ending requires the player to lie to Unknown until he gets frustrated and kidnaps the MC, who is then taken to Mint Eye to be re-educated. To get the first Another Story prologue ending, the player must reject Unknown's offers to be a playtester for his game and call the police on him. He and the rest of Mint Eye are arrested, and the MC gets to eat fried chicken at home without a care in the world. The second prologue ending follows a similar path, but instead of calling the police, the player must agree to meet with Unknown at a cafe. Upon meeting, Unknown asks the player to let him take them to Magenta, which is a castle on the Mint Eye compound. The MC becomes his assistant, learns how to program, and will never leave his side. The fried chicken ending doesn't seem like it would be a bad ending, but exposing Mint Eye to the police actually puts the twins in danger. I'll go into this more later. Trailer jump scare. An audio trailer for Mystic Messenger was released about a month before the game's debut. It consists of the characters saying random lines to the viewer similar to ones they would say in the game. Then, all of a sudden, the screen glitches and Unknown interrupts with the line, "Don't forget, I'm the one who invited you." It's not a very startling jump scare, but I'm sure it shocked people at the time of its release. Ending songs. There are 3 songs that play at the conclusion of routes. Like the Sun in the Sky plays at the end of Casual and Deep routes. It is performed by Han, who sings the opening theme, and Sirius. This song is from V to Rika, as is evident by lyrics like, "No matter what you do, I will keep shining towards you like the bright sun above." The Compass plays at the end of V's route and is performed by his voice actor, Ho-San Lee. The song describes a compass directing V out of his troubles and worries and towards the MC. V has trouble listening to the compass as he doesn't believe he deserves to be happy with the MC. Despite all of the conflict present in the song, V concludes by saying lines like, "The compass was but within me all along, and to you is where I go." 4 Seasons plays at the end of Ray's route and is performed by Sonak Buell. The song is about Ray's love and devotion towards the MC. Throughout the song, he repeats the line, "If you and I stay together through our 4 seasons, my heart will never suffer." Saren's DID. Saren's various names and personalities are reminiscent of dissociative identity disorder. The representation of the disorder is iffy. I mean, the top of his wiki page says that his character is not an accurate representation of mental illness. So, there's that. Even though this is a prominent part of his character, you really only see his switches during Another Story. Ray and Saren are his alters, but Ray is nowhere to be seen in the other game modes. And I don't believe Unknown is actually another alter, but rather a disguise for recruitment purposes only. V and the Secret Organization. When the twins were 15 years old, V and Rika separated them from one another. Rika took Seron to brainwash him at Mint Eye, and Seong went with V to join the secret intelligence agency. V is the one who introduced Seong to the organization, but how did V know about it? He grew up wealthy and became an established photographer by the time of the game. Doesn't seem like the kind of person who'd be aware of super secret hacker organizations. It is possible that Rika knew about the organization since she went on to establish Mint Eye, but if that were the case, why would V introduce Seong to it? Maybe it's because he just has connections, because money? I don't know. This is something we probably won't get an answer on, but I'm still curious. Unknown is Nagito. Yeah, this is just straight up true. Check out this short clip if you don't believe me.
Hello, it's me, Unknown.
You play as Rika Rumor. Before the release of V's route, many players were concerned that you would play as Rika. Players didn't know how a V route would be possible since he still seemed to love Rika in Casual and Deep Story. Luckily, Another Story is in an alternate universe, so the player need not worry about Rika stealing their man. Fourth wall breaks. As early as the prologue, the fourth wall can be broken. The MC, along with every dateable character except for V, can break the fourth wall at some point. The character that does this the most is 707, which connects to a theory about him that will be discussed further down the iceberg. During the prologue, you have the option to tell 707 that you aren't a girl, and he'll ask why you're playing this game. 7 even tends to say that the MC is on a certain character's route, drawing confusion from the others. The MC can break the fourth wall quite a lot in Another Story, revealing information she should not be aware of yet. There's also more serious examples that will be touched upon later. Green-Eyed Prologue Man. In the prologue for Mystic Messenger, it is possible to get this image sent to you by Unknown. If you're mistrustful of him, he'll send you this image as proof that he's a real person. But as we know, this is not what Unknown looks like. So, who is this guy? Is he photoshopped? Is he Unknown in disguise? Or is he just some random dude? I have no idea and likely never will, but what I do know is that some people wanted a route for him, and this artist even made a comic featuring the green-eyed man as a love interest. I'll link it in the description. Canon Route Order. Upon looking up a route guide for Mystic Messenger, most websites will list this order: Zen, Yusung, Jaehee, Jumin, 707, V, then Ray. This order doesn't need to be followed to understand the game, but it does the best job of gradually introducing the greater story. I wished I had looked this up before playing because I played Yusung's route first, and it was a lot darker than I expected. Just don't play Zen, Yusung, Jaehee, or Jumin's route after playing 707's. You'll end up feeling like a horrible person. Trust me. #PegYusung2020. So, in 2020, Mystic Messenger had a resurgence in popularity that can be attributed to the pandemic. The Mystic Messenger TikTok community grew even stranger than it was before, and an account named PegYusung2020 arose and got the hashtag to trend. It was such a big event that many accounts started changing their profile pictures to this image and using the hashtag on their videos. Honestly, this was just really weird. Like, imagine someone playing Mystic Messenger for the first time in 2020 and they start on Yusung's route. They want to look up stuff about him and BAM! PegYusung2020. Also, this is a bit of a side trip, but when I told my friends about this in 2020, one of them didn't know what pegging was and asked if this was it. No, Mia, that is certainly not pegging. V scene recordings. This isn't very dark, but I don't feel like a lot of people are aware of it. While recording his lines for the first secret ending as well as his own route, V's voice actor and the Chariot's staff cried. Creating this game took emotional labor and it shows. Mint Eye. Though Mint Eye isn't very obscure, I think that its concept and role in the game is dark enough to warrant being on the 3rd tier. Basically, it's a religious cult intent on finding paradise through drug-induced brainwashing. Rika started this organization with the intention of eliminating fear and pain from the world, but she failed miserably. Mint Eye will be brought up again in later entries on the Iceberg. Tier 4. Ray Route Warning. Before purchasing Ray's route, the player will be met with a pop-up that contains the new content of the route. New CGs, phone calls, endings, and such. But one thing that separates this screen from the other route purchase screens is the warning. There's red text at the bottom that reads, "To enhance the actuality of specific characters, some content may make you uncomfortable. This game is for ages 15 and older." Anyone that has played Ray's route understands why this warning is present, but I will talk about it later regardless. V's cancer lie. During the 10th day of Jaehee's route, there is a Juman story mode where V visits him. V asks Juman to take over the RFA for him because he has terminal liver cancer. Juman doesn't believe this for a second and pleads with V to admit that he's lying. Thing is, V is most definitely lying. V tells Juman that he has terminal cancer so Juman doesn't discover what is really going to happen to him. He will most likely be killed by Mintai and is trying to spare feelings all around. V doesn't want anyone to worry about him and he doesn't want the RFA to think any less of Rika. V then tells Juman he's going where Rika is and leaves Juman in a shocked state. Zen's prophetic dreams. There are many instances throughout Mystic Messenger of Zen predicting events in his dreams. At the very end of the prologue, Zen tells the MC that he saw them in a dream the night prior. In the casual route, he mentions having a dream where he, the other characters, and the MC are all robots programmed to say things. In his own route, he has a dream where the MC gets kidnapped, which enables him to save them the next day. Finally, in Juman's route, he dreams about Elizabeth's kidnapping and even sees the Mintai headquarters despite never having been there. So how is it that Zen can predict these events? And how can he see places he's never been? There aren't actually that many theories about why this is, but I think it's just a plot device and a way to bring Zen's character into the more obscure parts of the story. Deleted 2014/2015 demo. A Redditor claims to have played a Mystic Messenger demo sometime between 2014 and 2015. They write that this beta version of the game was more difficult and morbid than the final product. Several replies to the post say that there was no game demo, while others claim to remember there being one as well. The only official information I can find on a game demo is this video released by Cherits in 2016 that shows basic game functions. It is possible that there was a Mystic Messenger demo around this time, since the Zoom had a demo during 2019, but I don't believe there was one. I'll bring this topic up again on the 5th tier because it connects to a much larger mystery surrounding the early stages of Mystic Messenger. Game Mode Bad Endings. Game Mode Bad Endings occur when the player hasn't collected enough hearts for a character in the game mode that they're playing on. There are 3 of these types of endings, and the casual and deep story endings occur on day 5, while the another story bad ending is on day 4. The casual story bad ending involves a chat room where Yusung tells the MC that he and all of the other characters were brainwashed by V and 707 to act like robots. Jaehee and Zen are concerned and tell Yusung that they're going to visit him, but before they get the chance, Yusung is kidnapped by Unknown and taken to Mintai. Jaehee then says that she will try to get Yusung a mental evaluation and that the player should make up their mind, aka choose a route. The deep story bad ending begins with the story mode where V thinks about Rika. Unknown then shows up and tells V that he is planning a surprise for RFA, particularly for 707. Unknown kidnaps V and the story mode cuts to 7, who is unable to get in contact with V. Realizing that V is in danger, 7 tells the player about the bomb and that he plans to rescue V. The party is cancelled and the player is unregistered from the messenger. Another story's bad ending is a singular story mode between Ray and the MC. The MC wants to leave Magenta, and Ray is hurt by this, saying that he will physically hurt them to make them stay. He is also angry with RFA, believing that chatting with them is the reason MC wants to leave. The story mode ends with him telling the player that he can't wait for them to like him, and he asks that they don't leave him. Judge or Forgive. V's after ending, Judge or Forgive, consists of 7 episodes and 2 different endings. In the beginning, V tells the MC that he will be going on a trip to heal and asks that they wait for him while promising to write letters. Burning his letters leads to the judge ending, while reading them leads to his forgive ending. So, Seiron had actually survived the explosion at Mintai, which Rika reveals is because his room was built to withstand explosions. Seong kidnapped Rika from police custody and took her to a cabin where he, Vanderwood, and the MC are staying. Zen encourages you to forgive Rika, while Yusung encourages you to judge her. Towards the end, it is revealed that V has been caring for Seiron, and now that Seiron isn't under the effects of the elixir, the two can finally live a normal life. In the forgive ending, Rika exposes the twins' father for being a piece of shit, resolves to find a better path to happiness, and says goodbye to the RFA members. At the next RFA party, V surprises RFA by showing up with Seiron, and the twins have a tearful reunion. 5 years later, V and the MC are planning to get married and are already raising their adoptive daughter, Lucy. In the judge ending, Rika has been in a coma for a while, and V and Seiron eventually return to everyone. A month later, Yusung speaks in front of a group that focuses on healing and moving on from one's past, and V professes his love for the MC. I like how this DLC ends and resolves the issue of Seiron's apparent death, but I do have a few issues with it. Firstly, V is barely in it, only appearing in letters and flashbacks until the very end. Like, come on, it's his DLC. Another problem I have is that they make you feel really terrible for not wanting to forgive Rika. Like, bruh, she hurt so many people. Well, at least I got to marry V. Big dub. The final end. Ray's after ending, The Final End, actually functions like a route, having its own prologue and 4 days of chat rooms and story modes. There are a total of 10 endings, 4 sad endings, 4 bad endings, 1 normal ending, and 1 good ending. In the prologue, V drugs the RFA members and tells Seiron that the only way to save his brother is to meet with his father, Prime Minister Sejong Choi. Also, V and Rika are back together. Ugh. It is revealed that the Prime Minister and Seong's agency boss handed the twins over to V and Rika, who intend to create some creepy little family with them. In exchange, the Prime Minister would use the twins to gain public favor in his campaign by showing that he is compassionate towards them. This is why the fried chicken ending from the prologue is actually a bad one. If the cult is exposed, Seiron and Seong are exposed and left to their father's devices. The next day, Seiron and the MC go to V's house, where they are forced to stay by the hacking agency. Seiron makes it so that Seong and the MC can escape V's house while he stays behind. Sejong eventually finds out that Seong escaped, and Seong is able to pull an epic gamer move and make the agency think that their servers are down. Later, the MC and Jumin's father arrive at V's house, where V reveals that the agency is no longer patrolling. Inside the house, Rika apologizes for everything and resolves to help the MC locate Seiron. Day 4 ends with a scene between Seiron and Sejong, with the latter brutally beating the former until he's unconscious. There are too many endings for me to discuss all of them here, so I'll just discuss the normal and good endings. In the normal ending, Rika calls out Sejong for his abuse and orders him to leave Seiron alone, while V calls on an investigation team. Sejong attempts to flee, but he's incapacitated by Driver Kim! Fuck yeah! 6 months later, the agency is down, and Sejong, V, and Rika are arrested. In the final scene, Seiron proposes to the MC in a greenhouse. In the good ending, the MC holds Seiron, who says that he loves them before losing consciousness again. MC gives a speech to Sejong about why he sucks, and he's just like, yes, go on. Seiron wakes up and uses his minimal strength to hug Sejong and call him father before collapsing again. Sejong escapes, but for some reason visits Seiron at the hospital without anyone noticing. He suddenly decides to be a good dad and wishes Seiron and the MC well. 6 months later, everyone is living their best lives except for V and Rika, who are still arrested. The final scene shows the twins and MC happily sitting in a field. Okay, the good ending is kinda dumb though. Why does Sejong just get away with everything? As for the entire DLC, it is really convoluted. I had a hard time condensing this section because there's just too much going on. Also, they massacred my boy. Tree trunk. Tree trunk. V's storage device photos. During the 6th day of V's route, there's a 707 story mode where he and Jaehee open a package at V's house. It is a storage device, the contents of which Seven decides not to divulge to Jaehee. Seven wonders why someone would violate V's privacy, but also asks himself, who are the people in these photos? Are they really the same V and Rika we used to know? The next story mode is a flashback between V and Rika. V takes her photos for a 4-part photo collection called Trauma, Obsession, Conflict, and Reunion. Rika tells V that she is a horrible person that might blind him for real someday, and V tells her that he isn't afraid. This part of the story mode ends with V asking if Rika would be upset if he went blind. He then says, "Or maybe you'll be glad, as that devil inside you would be waiting for its chance to stab me." Dark. Also foreshadowing. For some reason, I saw some confusion online about what kind of photos were on the storage device. Let's just say they were private, and most definitely disturbing. Yoosung's cultist friend. This is something I had no clue about until I read it on Yoosung's wiki page. If you call Yoosung on the first day of another story, he'll mention that his best friend from high school, Byungwook, has joined a cult and his behavior scares Yoosung. Poor Yoosung. That boy knows way too many cultists. Zen's Epiphany. The second normal ending of the April Fool's DLC is very meta and different from most endings of the game. In order to achieve this ending, the player must convince Zen that he and you are from different dimensions. In this ending's story mode, Zen confesses his love for the player, not the MC, the player. He acknowledges that even though he and you are from 2 different worlds, he loves you and you love him, and his love for you keeps him going in a world full of people with programmed responses. Sounds very familiar. Also, calling Zen just before this story mode will result in him saying, "This is actor Zen, I am currently unavailable," or actually, "Thank you for calling me from a different world. I'm sorry I can't pick up." Dang. Secret endings. These endings consist of 2 parts, each with 7 episodes that cost 30 hourglasses to unlock. The first part begins with the twins, Vanderwood and MC, at a safe house. Saran calls Mintai, and the disciples kidnap the group before Saeung can finish sending their coordinates to RFA. There are flashbacks of V and Rika's relationship throughout Part 1. How they met, Rika's struggles with self-harm, and their fight over Mintai's creation are the most notable moments. In the present, Rika is revealed to be the savior of Mintai, and V gives Saeung a phone to contact Jumin. Rika tells her disciples to drug Saran, but Saeung prevents this, which confuses Saran. Saran's inner turmoil causes him to have a mental breakdown and fatally shoot V. Jumin and his security team arrive, and in a chat room, Jaehee tells Zen that V committed suicide. The final scene is V's funeral, where everyone expresses remorse, even Yoosung, but he gets frustrated and walks outside. Once outside, he sees Rika, who seems unable to speak. After a while, she mutters, "Son," and says that V is here, always. The second part focuses more on Saran's rehabilitation and Saeung's attempts to break through to him. We see several flashbacks, like Saeung learning to code, Rika brainwashing Saran to hate Saeung, and V and Rika meeting Saran. While in the hospital, Saran lashes out at Saeung and contemplates suicide while his brother watches over him. Saran is to be transferred to a different hospital wing, but before that can happen, Saeung knocks him out and takes him to the cabin. Later, Saeung tells Saran that he isn't alone, and Saran is angry that his brother can see inside his head so easily. Meanwhile, Zen has a dream where Yoosung and Rika are questioned by police, and takes this as a sign that Rika should seek therapy outside of the country. Back at the cabin, Saran attempts to take his life, but he is stopped by Saeung. Believing that the only way to kill himself is to kill his brother first, Seron chokes Seong, but ultimately can't go through with it. Rika is sent to Alaska for therapy, much to the disapproval of Jumin and Jaehee. The final scene is Seong and the MC's engagement party, and they take a photo with everyone, including Seron. As for a discussion, I think the secret endings are one of the best examples of dramatic writing Cheritz has done. Too bad my husband had to die for it. V can't be saved in the canon timeline. Speaking of V, another story is supposed to take place on a different timeline from the other game modes. Because of reasons that will be discussed later, many consider the timeline of Casual and Deep Story to be the canon one. Following this line of logic, V's life is in danger in every route of the canon timeline, and the only way to save him is in an alternate one. Though even this has its difficulties, as V isn't exactly in a good situation in Ray's route and After Ending. In every route of the Casual and Deep Story, V is either dead, implied to be dead, or missing. Even in the case of routes like Jumin and Yusung's, V is at the RFA party, but he is nowhere to be seen in their After Endings. I made this an entry because V is the only character that can't be saved in the original timeline. Ray and Rika are alive, or are at least implied to be, in Casual and Deep Story endings, while V is only alive and well in his own route. I swear Cheritz hates V. Tier 5. Childhood trauma, abuse, and grooming. This section groups together all of the terrible childhoods of the characters because to do them separately would be too many entries. Every character had it rough, except Yusung. He had a normal upbringing unless you count Rika's death on his graduation day. The rest of this entry will be split into sections for each character. Zen. Zen's childhood was full of verbal abuse from his parents and his brother, whom they would compare him to. Zen's parents would call him ugly, and his mom even threatened to shave his head once because he didn't focus on school enough. As if things couldn't get any worse, one of his teachers gave him special treatment, and other adults would chase him with cameras and attempt to touch him. His own brother even tried to rationalize it by saying that those people just want to be friends with him, while creepily reaffirming to Zen that he is pretty. No wonder Zen has narcissistic tendencies. He needs the validation that his parents never gave him. Jaehee. Jaehee's father died when she was young, and her mother died when she was 15, leaving her in the care of her aunt and uncle. Her aunt treated her like a waste of space, not wanting to take her in and planning to kick her out as soon as she started college. This is why Jaehee became so self-reliant and isolated. She wouldn't feel like a burden if she could handle everything by herself. Jumin. Jumin has always been close with his father, but was uncomfortable with the amount of women he would enter relationships with. One of these women even tried to groom Jumin by flirting with him, asking for hugs, and saying that she wants to live alone with him. Jumin's actual mother wasn't any better, and she is one of the main reasons Jumin doesn't trust women. She would openly tell him that he was only born to produce the best CEO and eventually began to criticize everything he did. Once Jumin became less emotive than a normal child, she would call him creepy and began locking him in the basement with toys, hoping that he would act normal. The longest period of time he was locked away was 17 hours and 14 minutes. It's no wonder Jumin has a hard time trusting women, and I think his possessive tendencies are a result of him having little to no control of his life during his youth. The twins. The twins grew up the illegitimate sons of the Prime Minister and were used to blackmail him for money by their mother. Their father attempted to have them kidnapped several times when they were young, in order to avoid a public scandal. As for their mother, she would beat and starve them for years. Seong was always more rebellious and headstrong, causing her to dislike him and put him at risk of getting kidnapped by his father's agents. She kept Seron close, and because he was home more than his brother, he was abused and starved more, leading him to become the weaker twin. Eventually, V sent Seong to the hacking agency, and Seron was left with his mother. This caused Seron to form a temporary attachment to her, believing that even though she hurt him, she wouldn't leave him like his brother did. Rika would go on to kill their mother, take Seron under her wing at Mintai, and brainwash Seron into hating Seong. Seong's insistence on protecting others comes from the role he played as a child. and Saron seeks control because he had none. V. When V's mother was pregnant with him, she sustained an injury that caused her to go deaf, which ended her violin career. As a child, V's mother was barely allowed to see him, as his father believed she would turn him into an artist. This caused V to be unable to recognize her until he was older. As a result of his father's actions, V became pragmatic and business-minded and saw his mother as a delusional artist. After receiving advice from Juman, V reconnected with his mother in high school and the two grew closer. V was still aloof around her, and since it was hard for her to communicate with him, she wrote diaries instead. She encouraged him to be an artist after seeing some of his work, but V refused to listen, and he even snapped at her after she entered a painting of his into a contest. Their relationship was rocky after this, but V's mother still loved him with all her heart, eventually giving her life to save him from a house fire. After her death, V discovered the diaries she wrote and learned that when she couldn't feel any emotions, she still felt strong love towards him. These diaries taught V about unconditional love, which he tried to give to Rika without truly understanding it. Because of the way he was raised, V forced himself to feel love and repress his true emotions. Rika. Rika, originally born Mina, became an orphan at the age of 3 after her mother's suicide. When she was at an adoption center, she met a 6-year-old girl named Mika, who struggled with previous adoptions. Mika was to be adopted by Yusung's aunt, but the pastor that came with her wanted her to choose Mina instead because God chose Mina. Mina was given the baptismal name Serena and was yelled at and told that God would expel her anytime she misbehaved. Serena's mother started to doubt that she was the one God chose and made her visit the pastor continually. She was repeatedly sexually abused by this pastor, and her mother said that this was her being cleansed of the devil and that nobody would even want to touch someone like her. This abuse made Serena see God as a merciless being that would expel her if she didn't obey. When she turned 16, Serena visited Mika in the hospital, who was thin, sickly, and still in the orphanage. Mika encouraged Serena to become someone that helps others while hiding her nearly untreatable eye cancer. Serena would go on to adopt a dog named Sally and then stand up against the pastor that abused her. She told him to never use God to hurt people like he did with her. Her mother then tries to kick her out of the house, but Serena tells her that Satan lives inside of her, and if her mother kicks her out, Satan will guarantee that she goes to hell. Her mother believes this, of course, and Serena changes her name to Rika. She starts doing community service in poor neighborhoods, and her childhood abuse would go on to shape the relationships in her adulthood. Which leads us to Rika's abuse of V and Saron. I wouldn't say that this is too obscure, but it's only revealed outside of the 5 main routes, particularly Another Story and the secret endings. Since Rika had used the devil to protect herself at a young age, she feared that her darkness would taint others' light. This is exactly how she felt about V, but V told her that he was devoted and would even marry her to prove it. After the death of her dog Sally, Rika's mental health worsens, and V recommends that she see a therapist. Rika attends therapy for 3 weeks before quitting and ends up asking for her own apartment after she starts to feel suffocated by V's presence. This is actually a farce for her needing a location to begin planning out Mintai, and Mika was the one that told her that V would get in the way of her dreams. Rika began to physically hurt V after discontinuing therapy, eventually injuring him so badly that he would go blind. V would encourage her abuse because he believed it to be an act of love, and he was obsessed with the idea of loving her. Even when V was undercover at Mintai, she physically abused him, and he was okay with it because he believed he was proving his love for her. Oh yeah, she also tortured and stabbed him on his route. Even before you figure out that V was a victim of domestic abuse, the signs are all there. He apologizes a lot, fears conflict, and encourages other characters, particularly Yusung, to blame him for everything. Obviously, he is to blame for some things, but he didn't deserve what happened to him, nor did Saron. Before the events of the game, Rika killed Saron's mother and told him that she would be his new mom, and forcibly took him to Mintai. She used drugs to brainwash him into hating the RFA members, especially Seong, as she convinced Saron that he was abandoned by his brother. During his route, Rika forces Ray to drink the elixir multiple times, triggering switches between his alters. I think it's important to acknowledge that you can feel bad for what Rika went through, and be angry at what she did to others. Saron's abuse of the MC. Throughout Saron's route, the player develops a relationship with Ray, who is kind and gentle. After being cleansed by Rika, the Saron persona comes out and immediately acts aggressively towards the MC. He demeans the relationship between the MC and Ray and tells the MC that he dislikes everything about them and that they're useless. He taunts the MC while touching them and mentions that he is going to leave marks on their body. They are starved for the next day and forced to remain in the room they've occupied thus far. Later, he tells the MC that the only thing they're allowed to say to him is yes, and if they waste time, something that's no fun at all will take place. And then it is revealed that most of the things he tells you were said to him by his mother. He confuses you for his mother and attacks you once again, telling you multiple times that he can kill you to prove he's strong. Eventually, Saron apologizes to the MC for his actions and admits that he was projecting his self-hatred onto them. As with Rika, you can certainly feel bad for Saron and acknowledge that, to a degree, his behavior wasn't his fault, but that doesn't mean it should be ignored. Honestly, I think that the state he's in during another story makes him an unsuitable love interest. The MC is put in danger by being romantically pursued by him, which warrants the warning for his route. Call me crazy, but I don't think that forgiving someone for the abuse they put you through should be mandatory for a good ending. Maybe they could have done what they did with V. Have him take a break to work on himself and return when he's able to enter a healthy relationship. Obviously, a lot of people like Saron, but I think it would be better for both him and the player to enter a relationship at a later point in time. Disturbing bad endings. There are many disturbing bad endings in Mystic Messenger, and I will be discussing the darkest ones in this entry. I will be splitting this entry into sections for each character once again. Zen. In his third bad story ending, the MC is willingly taken to Mintai by Unknown, and Zen is kidnapped and taken there as well. The final scene shows Zen in a brainwashed state, unable to remember the MC. The two are part of a play where Unknown is the MC's savior because their prince, aka Zen, was too late. Yusung. For him, I will be discussing his bad story ending 1 and bad story ending 3. In the first bad story ending, Yusung is made to believe that the player is the same as Rika and threatens Seven for the apartment's address. Upon arriving, Yusung is confused as to why the MC doesn't look like Rika, but tells them that he won't let them leave like she did. In the next few seconds, the security system timer goes off while Yusung professes his love for the player. When the timer reaches 0, the bomb goes off, killing both Yusung and the MC. In his bad story ending 3, Yusung and Seven infiltrate Mintai, but Yusung is caught and Seven is forced to leave him behind. We then see a creepy scene between Yusung and Unknown, where the latter talks about all of the ways he is going to torture the former. Jaehee. In Jaehee's bad story ending 2, she collapses after the MC encourages her to overwork herself, landing her in the hospital. Jumin apologizes for overworking her and Jaehee resigns from her job, believing herself to be broken and unable to work. Jumin. For Jumin, I will be discussing his bad story ending 2 and bad relationship ending 2. Jumin's bad story ending 2 is pretty infamous for being found both sexy and disturbing. In this ending, Jumin's obsessive personality traits are encouraged and he locks the player in his penthouse. The final CG depicts the MC with tied wrists and a tracker on their heels while Jumin smiles darkly in the corner. In his bad relationship ending 2, the MC must express a strong desire to leave his penthouse and a dislike towards Jumin. They will try to escape out of a window, all while V and Jumin warn them that it's dangerous. The MC then jumps to their death and the route ends. 707. 707's bad story ending 2 and bad relationship ending 2 are the ones I found most disturbing. Beginning with his bad story ending 2, the MC encourages Seven to be cheery and playful, all while ignoring his serious concerns about his brother. He eventually gives up on saving Saron and resolves to abandon the RFA and take the MC out of the country. While driving, Seven seems to be joyful and tells the player that they should both live happily every second they are alive, and then he speeds up the car. In his bad relationship ending 2, Seven and the MC infiltrate Mint-Eye, but they are caught by Unknown. Seven then shows Unknown a floppy disk with photos of them as children, which causes Unknown to have a breakdown. In this breakdown, he asks Seven for one last hug before shooting his brother right in front of the MC. V. For him, I will be discussing his Bad Story Ending 2 and Bad Story Ending 3. In his Bad Story Ending 2, the player has to convince V that being obsessive in a relationship is okay, but that he wasted this attention on Rika. 2 years later, V takes photos of the MC as they are being dominated by a group of other men. While this happens, V asks that the player test him any way that they want, by hurting him, cheating on him, and even killing him, all so he can prove his love for them. V's Bad Story Ending 3 takes a very different route, having V tell the MC that he can't forget about Rika and wants to be with her. V and Rika meet at his apartment and she apologizes profusely for stabbing him the night prior, and tells V that he can hurt her. V agrees to do whatever it takes to keep her at his side, implying that V will be the one to abuse Rika this time around. Ray. Ray's Bad Story Ending 1 and Bad Story Ending 2 are the ones I will discuss here. Firstly, in his Bad Story Ending 1, the player is given full control of his life by Rika, who believes that he needs someone to control him to survive. Months pass and Ray treats the MC like a goddess and tells them that he will break himself or change entirely so that the player doesn't leave him. In his Bad Story Ending 2, the player must reassure Saron that he is the stronger alter and Ray is the weaker one. This causes Saron to remain in control and emotionally and physically abuse the MC by reminding them they don't deserve anything and depriving them of food. Saron also suggests that he will cheat on the MC and then kisses them only to say that it was the worst kiss of his life. He leaves the MC alone after telling them that their suffering is fun for him. DLCs. As far as DLCs go, the second normal ending from the April Fool's DLC that was discussed earlier is rather off-putting. The unknown ending of the Christmas DLC is pretty similar to the prologue ending of Casual and Deep Story. The MC is kidnapped by Unknown, who promises to give them a perfect Christmas. In Ray's after ending, there are two endings I think are worth mentioning. His Sad Ending 4 and Bad Story Ending 3. In his Sad Ending 4, the twins are drugged by Rika so that they are in a constant state of sleep. She is happy that they can finally be a family like she always wanted. In his Bad Story Ending 3, the MC never got to him in time to save him from his father's beatings. As a result, Saron is left in a coma as the MC cries over his unconscious body. Creepy/obscure phone calls. There are 3 phone calls I want to discuss in this section. The first phone call I want to bring attention to is during the 5th day of V's route and comes from a drunk Yusung. After receiving the torn photo of V and Rika from Ray, Yusung concludes that their relationship truly was a lie, and cries about how Rika must have been in so much pain. This call is preceded by a chat room where Yusung blames V for Rika's suicide before Zen takes his phone away. The next phone call I will be discussing is during the 7th day of V's route. There's a story mode depicting Saron overdosing V on the elixir, and calling V afterwards will lead to a very disturbing phone call. On the call, V cries and coughs while Saron torments him, telling him that he failed to save the player. V attempts to apologize before presumably passing out. Saron takes over the call and tells the player that he's looking forward to the next RFA party before hanging up. The last phone call I will talk about takes place on the 3rd day of Deep Story. Seven will tell you about a dream he had where he was a cat with a brother and a mother that didn't feed them. The brother cats ran away and traveled through mountains and oceans, eventually finding themselves on a pirate ship. This call seems very innocuous at first, but after playing his route, you realize that it's a crude retelling of his childhood and the abuse he and Saron suffered at the hands of their mother. Zen_unicornio. On May 31st of 2022, a disturbing Instagram account would emerge and begin posting bizarre photos. As you can see, the photos depict the character Zen as a unicorn. But why? Why does the account use prayer emojis in their captions? Why does their description read, Zen unicorn the best. You have to pray during the day and night. I'll be making a Discord server to get to the bottom of this mystery, so link in the description if you want to join. Okay, that was a joke. I just think this account is funny and you should follow them. And we needed some lightheartedness after all that darkness. Seriously, just a fun account. Yusung's Suicide Mandela Effect. The first route I played in Mystic Messenger was Yusung's, and boy was that an emotional load. After playing his route, I was curious about his character, so I decided to look him up. I certainly found some content, but there was one thing that caught my eye. I kept hearing about an ending where Yusung commits suicide. I found this odd because his wiki page didn't mention anything about such an ending, but it has been brought up on several social media platforms before. I remember seeing several TikToks where people would talk about this ending like it was common knowledge. Of course, I can't find those exact TikToks anymore, but I did find a couple that say essentially the same things. Here's one of them.
Don't say that. Please don't say that. It was real. It was real to me.
I was also able to dig up numerous Twitter threads talking about this, as well as a tweet I made about the topic nearly 2 years ago. In my tweet, I recalled that others had mentioned a sad phone call from 707 and a CG of Yusung crying. No idea where I got that info from, but I must have read it somewhere. On the Mystic Messenger subreddit, a user asked if anyone remembered playing through an ending like this, and several others responded that they do. One Redditor writes, I actually got it, and I remember he committed suicide by either hanging himself or Saron gave him a gun. A few users mentioned that this ending is linked to the alleged 2014/2015 demo that was discussed earlier. One user actually emailed Cheritz about this demo and the suicide ending, and they had this to say. Thank you for your email. We appreciate your interest in our game, Mystic Messenger. We would like to assure you that although there are no demo versions of Mystic Messenger, we will look into the claims you have informed us of. Moreover, please note that since it can be considered a spoiler, we are unable to give you any information regarding the scenario of the endings of the game. So this seems like a conclusion, right? Wrong. I still have one more piece of evidence to bring up, and then I will talk about what I make of all this. Cheritz says that there was never a demo version of the game, but that's not entirely true. This Tumblr post by Cheritz in 2015 is a comic depicting a character that's meant to represent a game dev testing the game. The screenshots are from the game's very early stages before it was released to the public. Obviously, this testing version of the game wasn't public, but it was an early and playable version of Mystic Messenger. Even if it was only accessible by the devs, it does serve a similar purpose to a demo. Perhaps this testing version of the game wasn't just accessed by the devs. Maybe it was accidentally distributed to some third parties for a short time. Or maybe Mystic Messenger fans are just crazy and enjoy spreading misinformation. Here's my take on the situation. People confuse the casual story ending where Yusung is kidnapped by Mintai with a bad story ending like the bomb one. In both endings, he seems very out of touch with reality and not concerned with his own life. People could have also combined these with the fact that he does actually have suicidal ideations during the latter half of V's route. And the demo idea just sprouted from people misremembering and wanting to believe that it exists. Maybe this dark demo truly is out there, but probably not. Probably. Another story is a prequel. So, I actually discovered this theory while reading about Mystic Messenger on the TV Tropes site. In one of Ray's bad relationship endings, the MC is so heavily drugged that they lose their memories. The ending has them wake up and walk towards Rika's apartment, something they do at the prologue of Casual and Deep Story. A lot of players believe that this ending is proof that Another Story is indeed a prequel to the other story modes as opposed to an alternate universe. This would make a lot of sense, considering how obsessed Unknown is with the MC during the prologue. Another piece of evidence to support the prequel theory is that during another story, the MC already knows information about RFA and other story beats. I think it's odd that the game would give you these chances to break the fourth wall, and an ending that implies the MC wakes up during the casual and deep story prologue. It's like they want us to make these crazy theories. There's also something I want to mention here because I don't know where else to bring attention to it. On the wiki page for V's mother, it says that she's alive as of casual and deep story, but dead in another story. Since she died when V was a teenager, how is this possible? Why would the universe need to be different in this way? Is the only way to pursue V is if his mother is dead? Is this further proof that casual and deep story are an alternate universe to another story, or is it lazy writing? I don't know. Reset theory. This is for sure the most popular theory in all of Mystic Messenger. I waited for the very last entry to discuss it because it touches upon the topics mentioned in so many other entries. So, what is the reset theory? It's the theory that when you reset the game, the character's memories are all reset, all except for 707's. Now this theory does have quite a bit of weight to it, but to understand why that is, we must establish one thing. 7's route is the canon route, or at least it's heavily implied to be. The theme song for Mystic Messenger contains the lyrics, "Imagine something new that is fully out of this world, you and me, let's marry in this space station." During Deep Route, 707 will call you and he says, "Hearing your voice makes me want to take you to the space station." Clearly, this implies that the theme song is from his perspective, but if you need further evidence, the theme ends with the line, "I've been watching you from the start." Who's the first character to see the MC? Technically Saron, but this song was released way before his route, so yeah. Now who's the second character to see the MC? That's right, 707. And he keeps watch of you through the security cameras throughout every route, which puts him in a unique situation. He gets to see more of you than any other character and is heavily implied to have feelings for the MC in every route. As for how 7 knows when you reset, you will get a very sad phone call from him if you decide to play another route after obtaining his good ending. This call goes something like this. 707 cries and tells you that you don't care about him and that you only care about the current character you're pursuing. He cries and laughs all while comparing his heart to crumpled breadcrumbs and then hangs up. I was definitely shocked when I got this on Juman's route, but I also thought it was kinda cool. This is probably the biggest piece of evidence in support of the reset theory and is enough to make me believe it. There's also a video by A Girl and a Game that goes more in depth about this theory, and I think you should check it out if you're curious. I'll link it down below. And that was the Mystic Messenger Iceberg. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to collect those anniversary hourglasses. And if you're watching this way after that, sorry, but you can get it during a character birthday too, so yeah. Follow me on Instagram if you want more Mystic Messenger content, and subscribe, and like, and such. Goodbye.